in a magazine many years ago, and I have no idea what it's called. So I'm calling it a square-edged hollow form. For this piece, I'm going to turn with waste blocks in between. Okay, there it is. Turn with waste blocks in between, turn a round form, take it apart, and depart with the waste blocks and glue the rest back together. And I'm a rather visual whenever I turn anything. I like to draw it out first to see what I'm going to end up with. And I find, especially with this form, that it's particularly helpful because when it's on the lathe, it's a totally different size and shape than it's going to be when you're finished. So to give me a visual, I started by drawing my piece out here, remembering I was going to add 1.5 inches to it. So my diameter actually changes with an additional 1.5 inches to this. And just to visualize it all together, I drew my sizes out. For this particular piece, I actually started, get ahead of myself here, I started by taking a block of wood, and I decided where I was going to cut it. I was going to end up with 4 pieces. So I went ahead and marked each of the four pieces and numbered them 1, 2, 3, 4 with an arrow in. So after I cut it and they were separated, I'd be able to pull it back together again, keep my grain all correct. I knew each of my pieces were going to be 3-inch squares. And in between, I put 1.5 inch waste material. And then I could see, when I finished the project and took the waste material out, what my shape was going to end up as. The nails, I hit them right on the head, so it wasn't a problem. So this piece, when I turned it, when I finished, it was actually round. And you can see the round piece here, and these 4 corners of it are the 4 pieces that ended up being glued together here. And the rest of it was waste that went away. And I took a side shot of it here just so you could see this is the waste piece right in the center of it. Now the sad part about this is my girls had their preschool graduation. And right after I took these pictures, we went straight to the preschool graduation and took many pictures of the girls. And the next day, my wife took the camera to work to share with her friends the pictures of her girls. And one of the ladies saw this and said, "I have to have this piece. I'll pay anything for this piece." And I'm like, "No, I'm taking it apart. It's this piece now." So I may have to get a 2x4 just to make a piece for this woman, but we'll see where that goes. Does everybody have an idea where I'm going now? Why? Because I can, and there's nobody big enough to stop me. So this is the size I'm going to turn tonight. I decided to turn a relatively small one due to time constraints and due to the fact that this is the 1, 2, 3rd time I've done this. So I wanted to keep it pretty small. The original article that I read, they used the technique of newspaper with yellow glue on each side and splitting it apart. The only time I tried that, I split the wood too. So I'm going to use double-sided Turner's tape for this project. But this is the waste that came from this piece. And I just wanted to pass these around, let everybody take a look at them. Yes. Sure. I don't know the brand name of it. This is double-sided tape that Gary from Highland Hardware? No, was it Highland Hardware Gary's with? Gary with, you know Gary. Gary worked on the youth project with us for the AAW Symposium. And this I picked up from his company. and it is called spec tape. So it's a little heavier, a little thicker than carpet tape. I tried it with just carpet tape because, you know, Walmart's close. But Hartsville Hardware, and that's where I picked this up. You ask me questions that are 2 years old, that's tough. So, from the overhead again, I'm going to start with my 4 pieces. I've sliced it, and now I'm going to add waste blocks to it. So I've got a waste block from that direction, and a waste block here, and a piece on the floor, and a waste block here, and that's what I'm going to end up turning. And when I'm through, I'll do away with my waste blocks and put it back together. Okay? And again, I use the double-sided tape. Now, when I use that double-sided tape, a little tip I picked up from Bonnie Klein. Bonnie taught us this. When you use this tape, go ahead, put it between your pieces of wood, but then squeeze it in your vise, because you get a good hard press there. Oh, about 30 seconds. Yeah, a whopping 30 seconds. Now, when turning the larger ones, and this is the second large one I turned, I like to make a jam chuck because I know I can capture that thing in there and it can't get away from me, right? It can't come apart. Just in case the tape does fail me, it's my fail-safe is to have it in here. It can't come apart. And this particular one I turned and used in the finishing process to keep it from coming apart, because the thinner the wall gets, the more I worry about it coming apart. There's less surface tape holding it in place. So that's just something to keep in mind as you do this. Like I say, I kind of came up with this method myself, so hopefully I won't scare anyone. So this piece I've already clamped up, ready to go. And anytime I can grip it in the chuck, I'm going to use the power of the chuck to hold it together as well. So that's how I'm going to start out here. Now, when I did the larger piece, I couldn't grip it in the chuck. It was just simply too large. So on that piece, I turned between centers to get a tenon that I could grip in the chuck. I'll pull that down good. And then even though I think it's a little overkill here, I should have checked that to make sure it was somewhat centered. If you do this and it's not centered, you will be in trouble, because the parts will not come together when you get through. Oh. Jay, I'm crushed. You just don't trust double-sided tape. No, you're great. It's fine. Okay. Well, I worked with a computer programmer who used to tell me all the time that I wanted belts and suspenders. And even though I think it's overkill for this particular piece and this size, I'm going to do this anyway just to show you what I did at home with the larger piece, especially when I was turning it between centers. I'm going to go ahead and wrap that twice, so I know the tape is sticking to itself. And then I came back with zip ties, which in my household I like to refer to as the other duct tape. Now, you pull these zip ties down good and tight, you can break out the buckle. I didn't realize that until I did it a couple times. No, this was not. This is just This is all chip. No, the magazine article, they put the newspaper or brown paper, craft paper, I think they called it, with the glue. And the only time I'd tried that was when I tried to do a split spindle. That my sister wanted two half spindles. And when I actually went ahead and did that, the wood itself split. So I got a little frustrated with that methodology and never tried it again. Plus, at the advent of CA glue, it's just too easy to use CA glue most of the time. And I did that at one point with my larger one as well. I took a waste piece of wood and I actually made an X across there and spot CA'd it around there as well. So like I say, I think this is a little overkill for something of this size, but I wanted to show you how I did it to stay safe in my own shop. And that's what I did until I got this band good and tight around there. Now I'm pretty confident that can't go anywhere. Do you not share my confidence? Oh, you leave the ends, okay. And I don't know which belt we're on, but, oh, we're on the high end. We can turn real fast that way. That'd be great. I do tend to turn this a little slower, just in case. I didn't want to have too much centrifugal force working against me. A little bit bigger than I thought it was. This is my Bob Roseanne roughing gouge, one of the original bowl gouges. It has that deep U shape in it. Works very nicely as a small roughing gouge. Okay, I've got plenty of meat on all four of those corners. That might be a little bit large yet to grip with the stronghold chuck with the number 2 jaws. So I'm going to make that just a bit smaller. Cutting into the end grain there, which a lot of people would say is a big no-no. I say just keep your tools sharp. I don't want to go too small there because I want to have plenty of meat on each of those. I'm just going to taper it in a hair. Make it just a hair deeper. And I think we can grip that in a stronghold chuck then. So I'm just going to swap chucks out. I'll feel a lot better about having gripping power all the way around instead of just on the corners. I thought I had it there. I guess I didn't. And place it in there so I get plenty of bite on the 4 pieces of wood to hold them together, and I'm not just gripping the center blocks. So I'll be a little bit careful of my placement of the teeth. And since I've got a shoulder cut now, I'm somewhat committed, though I hope that it's still centered up. Yes, we're looking good. Got a nice knot right there. That's why Jay brought out the plastic shield. He's still on a knot. I'm sure that's it. Up towards the center point. Don't you hate it when it makes a noise like that? It's just these pieces there. Now at home I probably would turn it up a little faster, but since I'm already making Jay nervous, I'll keep it slow. It's all about you, Jay. Okay, so now I'm round all the way. Now I could have left, and this waste block has a little bit of a flat spot on it, and it would not hurt anything. So it appears that my 2 single blocks were slightly longer than my long block in the center because it has a flat edge on each end. And as long as the wood is round, that's going to go away anyway, so it doesn't matter at all. Kind of cramped in here a little bit. I'm going to move this down and see if I can make a little bit of room. close. Well, maybe not. Just a hair closer to start the shaping process. Is that small piece made it all the way around yet? When I started, I thought that small piece, if I put it on a stem, that would be a perfect flower. And I took it upstairs, and one of my little girls said, "What are you going to do with that next?" I said, "When I'm going to make a stem, make it a flower." She said, "Why would you put a vase on the end of a flower?" And then the next little girl came up and said this. Then my wife, I said, "Forget it. No, it's not a flower. It's a vase. Nothing I can do about it." I'm going to go ahead now and move that band down to this low spot that I've cut. And I probably should have cleaned up a little better. I may get myself in trouble later, but I'll end up cutting into the band. And I find if I hold the buckle of the band, is that what that's called? If I hold that down and then pull on the other side, I can get it much tighter. Otherwise, the whole band tries to stretch out on you. Left that one a little short. I'll just pull this one up again. So just using one to pull against the other. Got a little bit of tear out on the edge there. I'll clean up. Make it round first and then clean it all up. As long as they're exactly the same. Yes, exactly the same thickness. It's going to get cut down into round, right? And even when you slice it, if you don't slice it perfectly, it's still going to come back together as long as it's the same piece of wood. But if you get much variation in it, when you bring it back together, the sizes will be different. Okay? And that little piece, if you looked at very carefully at the corner, the edges, and I'm sure this won't show in the camera, but here the seam is just, I don't know. That's not an eighth of an inch, but it's a hair from where the actual vertex is. And that's, when I glued it up, I glued two pieces together first. I knew this was going to be my face with all the figure on it. So I glued those pieces up and made sure they were perfect. And then when I brought those two pieces together, one of them was slightly wider than the other. So that's where I came back and sanded away my sins there on two sides. And if you really have to look carefully to see that. I don't know, if you want to pass that around and look at the bigger one, might be easier to see. So you can hide your sins a little bit there. The tape's gonna rattle there and make me crazy. I was just gonna turn it away, but all right, I'll peel it off. We didn't need that anyway, right, Jay? Yeah, not now. Take that down with the little roughing gouge faster, probably. It's a very small diameter, so if it were a solid piece, I would definitely turn up the speed and my cuts would be more fluid. But just because it is the separate pieces and it just has a double-sided tape in between, I'm just keeping the speed down low. There's something round I can work with. Jay says, don't cut that band. Thought I could give that into a little more shape, but I don't like that shape at all. So I'll take this down just a hair more. I would never move the tool rest while the lathe is running. Paint the tie? No, 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 no. I could clean up under the tie and put another one on there real quick, which is probably the right thing to do before we hollow it, right? There we go with the masking tape. Well, as it turns towards me, I don't want it to come unwrapped. So if I tape it in such a way that the end of the tape is trailing in this direction, then it will be less apt to come back and get me. Fun with zip ties. I could buy two now, it's smaller. Yes. I don't use as much tape though. I would use it to hollow this piece. I would not use it at this point on this piece. But I wanted you to feel comfortable. So. It's all about you, Jay. Okay, now I'll get rid of this one and clean up under it. Pretty good edge there. You could clip these off so they aren't flapping in the wind. Just for you, Jay. Yeah, but I'm going to zip tie it on there so it won't go anywhere. Gosh. You're right, I did. Always a critic. Keep me honest, weren't you? So what did I say about belts and suspenders? I think I'm there. That's more exercise than I've had in a week. That marks pretty. Let's just do that. Until that's just a hair high there. That establishes my depth. Yeah, we'll just do it this way. That's a little bit rough because I've got those soft pieces of wood in the center, the harder pieces on the outside edge. So as I start catching those harder pieces, it wants to grab a little bit.